Hey there, welcome to our English online lesson with your perfect tutor, Mr. Gilbert Chubali. As we know in English, we've got two parts, which is the composition part and the structure part. So we need to balance these two parts because the exam caters for both of them. So at the end of this lesson, I'll talk about our learning system, how we are going to balance up learning the composition part as well as the structure part at the same time, within the same month. Okay, follow me. Here, we've got a very interesting topic, which is a reason in English. Today, we want to talk about a reason. This word is very common. It's very common. What is a reason? A reason is a cause or an explanation for an action or event. A cause, something that makes something to happen. That's a reason. So now we are in English looking at this reason. We are saying sentences of reason will normally comprise two parts. The sentences of reason will normally comprise two parts or clauses, which is the first part, which is part 1, contains the main clause. What happened? What took place? Then we've got the second part, which is the subordinate clause. This one bears the reason now. The first part talks about what happened. Then the second part will give us now a reason of what happened in the first part. So, for example, if we have in part 1, the example given, he did not come to school. This is what happened to this person. He did not come to school. When we come to our subordinate clause in part 2, it should tell us why this person did not come to school. So, we'll say, because he was very sick. Okay, that's why this person did not come to school, because he was very sick. That's a what? That's a reason. For this person not to come to school, the reason was that he was very sick. Okay, are we together? So, now, which word is introducing this reason part here, as you can see? Is the because. He was very sick is a clause on its own. But there is a word connecting it to the first clause. He did not come to school because he was very sick. So, the word because is connecting these two clauses. What is it showing? It is showing reason. Hence, let us look at some of the structures that are used to express reason. Here are some of them. Because is in the group of since and as. These three words can be used interchangeably. They can be used interchangeably. We talked about these words in our previous lesson. We said this means where you can use because, you can also use since or as is the same thing. It means the same thing. Let us look at some of the examples. Chawala got a distinction. Okay, this is what happened. Chawala got a distinction. Because he had studied hard. Okay, the reason is that this person studied hard. That's why he got a distinction. Which word is expressing reason there? Is because. Because he had studied hard. We are saying these three words can be used interchangeably. Therefore, you can say, Chawala got a distinction since he had studied hard. It's the same thing. Or, Chawala got a distinction as he had studied hard. You are talking about the same thing. These reasoning structures or the structures that we use to express reason are used to head or to introduce the reason clause, the second part. We cannot start with, or we cannot say, because Chavala got a distinction, he had studied hard. No, it is wrong. Because what happened first is for Chavala to get a distinction. That's what happened. The studying is the reason. Because he had studied hard. Are we together? Then we are also saying we can also start a sentence with a structure. With a structure. Now in this case, we need to use it properly. The structures need to be used properly. In this case, we are required to put a comma after the first clause. When you begin your sentence with this clause here, the reasoning clause or the second clause, you need to put a comma before you head to the second sentence. For example, because he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction. It is sounding to be correct when we put a comma. Not when we say because he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction without a comma, then it may be cumbersome in some way. Are we together? So, because he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction. Whenever you start with the second clause or the reason, then you must put a comma. When you start with the main sentence, what happened? Chavala got a distinction. Then because when the structure is within the sentence, you don't put a comma. Instead, you only put the words because, since, or as. Because he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction. As he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction. Now here, there is something different from what we're talking about here. We notice that these three words can be used interchangeably, but there is one word among the three which requires special attention: the since. Let us use since here. Since he had studied hard, Chavala got a distinction. It may sound to be correct, but when we use the word since, then the subject must be mentioned. The subject must be mentioned. That's only for since. So we can say, since Chavala studied hard, he got a distinction. Since Chavala studied hard, he got a distinction. When we use the word since, the subject or the person or thing performing an action should be mentioned. It should come out. So it's since Chavala studied hard, he got a distinction. Okay, so apart from because, since, and as, we have another group of words or structures that we use to express reason. That we use to express what? Reason. So this is saying that, and now that is a group or a pair. It's a pair of structures used to express reason. Seeing that, now that. The structures carry the same meaning and can be used interchangeably. This word is appearing in most of the groups of structures. So, even these two can be used interchangeably. Where you can use seeing that, you can also use now that, and vice versa. For example, seeing that we have missed the train. Seeing that we have missed the train, let us travel by bus. As we said, the structures that we use to express reason, these structures are always used to head to head what? The reason. To head to the reason. So, let us travel by bus. Why are we traveling by bus? Because we have missed the train. Now, here we have begun our sentence with a structure. We have begun our sentence with a structure. Hence, we said when the structures come first, or when we use them to start our sentence, then we must put a comma before heading to the main idea. So, seeing that we have missed the train, let us travel by bus. You can also say, now that we have missed the train, let us travel by bus. Look at the second example. I need to concentrate on my studies now that I am in grade 12. Are we seeing any comma in this sentence? No comma. This is because the structure used to express reason is inside or is within the sentence. So when the structure is within a sentence, we don't put a comma. Instead, the structure itself expresses the reason. It heads or it introduces the reason. So, I need to concentrate on my studies now that I am in grade 12. Or, I need to concentrate on my studies seeing that I am in grade 12. Since these two words can be used interchangeably. Are we together on that one? The comma and where I should not put a comma. You must be very careful on that one. But see, we've got use of the participial phrase. The participial phrase is a phrase or is a clause that begins with a present continuous tense. The word that starts in this sentence is in present continuous tense form. We are saying when participial phrases are used, the sentence that gives explanation comes first in its participial form. So, when we use the participial phrases, the sentence that gives explanation or that sentence that gives the reason should come first in its participial form. That means it should begin with a word in present continuous tense. So, for example, I can go to the movies now that I have done my work. I can go to the movies now that I have done my work. What's the reason here? Is that this person has done his work or her work. He's done doing the work. That's why he or she can go to the movies. So, we are saying, when we use the participial phrase, the reasoning sentence or the sentence that gives explanation should come first. Here it comes. Done my work. Now, as you can see, it is in its participial form. It is beginning with the having. So, having done my work, this is a participial clause or a phrase. Having done my work, I can go to the movies. There is one fact, one important point that you should consider here. You should remember always. Don't forget this one. When you begin with the verb, this is a verb. Having done my work in its present continuous tense form. Then, when you introduce the second sentence, the second sentence. The subject should come first, or the subject pronoun. Who did this work? The one who was performing the action here should come first after the comma. If the name is not mentioned, then the pronoun should be there. So in this case, we had no name, but we only had the pronoun I. So that's why, having done my work, the pronoun for the person or a thing that was performing the action which has been stipulated in the first statement. Having done my work, I can go to the movies. Yeah. Having done my work, I can go to the movies. So immediately you just finish having done my work. The sentence that, oh, who did this work? Now you should state clearly here. You say, okay, I can go to the movies. I can go to the movies. Look at question 2 or the example number 2. The Kitwe City Council has closed down the business because it was operating illegally. The Kitwe City Council has closed down the business because it was operating illegally. Operating illegally, you see? So, they have started with the action that was performed, operating illegally, comma. So, you when you're writing, you say, oh, who was operating illegally? Who was operating illegally? It's the what? It's the business. That's why it was closed. So, when you say operating illegally, then the thing that was operating illegally should be mentioned first, just after the first sentence. When you put a comma, don't forget. So, operating illegally, the business is the one that was operating illegally. That's why we are saying operating illegally, the business has been closed down by the Kitwe City Council. Immediately, we just put the word the business. We cannot say the business has closed down the Kitwe City Council. No, it's not the business that has closed the Kitwe City Council, but the Kitwe City Council has closed down the business. Hence, the business has been closed down by the Kitwe City Council. That's why it is changing here. When we start with the business, then it has been closed down by the Kitwe City Council. So, it is in this way. Operating illegally, the business has been closed down by the Kitwe City Council. This is how to express reason in participial form. In participial form. There are many questions in different past papers based on the same topic. Okay, so like I said at the beginning of the lesson, I said we'll talk about the topics to be covered or how we are going to balance the structure part as well as the composition part. As we know, paper 1 is composition, paper 2 structure. So follow me. Week 1, it was structure. It has been structure, contrast and reason. So it will be 2 videos a week, 2 topics. So structure, we have covered contrast and reason, the one we are from learning. Week 2, next week, this coming week, we've got composition. We will talk about the basic rules of writing a composition. How to write a composition in general, so that you have an idea of what a composition is. How to start, how to conclude, everything. We'll talk about that. Then, we'll also talk about the narrative composition now. After talking about the composition in general, we'll go in details and look at narrative composition, descriptive composition, argumentative composition within next week. So it will be 2 videos. The first video will talk about composition in general and narrative composition. Then the second video will talk about descriptive and argumentative composition. Then week 3, that other week, we'll have structure. We are going to cover condition. There we've got unless, improbable conditions, everything, blah blah. We'll talk about them. Then we'll also talk about direct and reported speech. Direct and reported speech. These questions don't miss in an exam. That's why, if you look at it, you just look at this. So, all these topics here, almostly, in all the years or in all the papers, they come. in an exam. The contrast, the reason, the narrative composition. And as for the composition part, there are 5 questions. You need to choose one. So when we talk about these 3, that means you are able to tackle section A. Because you just need to be sure that of the compositions that we have, the 5 types of composition will come, and then you will choose one. So you may find that narrative is there, descriptive is there, argumentative is there. You just need to choose one. So when we do this part, that means you are able to tackle section A of paper 1. Then in week 4, we will look at speech and the report. These two compositions come in section B of paper 1. So if you just look at this, you just follow me well, you can find that we have covered section A paper 1, section B paper 1, and paper 2, because paper 2 is about structure. So this is how we are going to cover or to balance the composition and the structure part. Follow us nicely as we give you that great desire. Be committed, be serious, be submissive, be obedient. When we give you assignment, submit on time. When we tell you something to do, just do as we have said. Because that way we can achieve giving you the grade that you want to get. It has been your teacher or your tutor, the perfect tutor, the perfect English tutor, Mr. Gilbert Chevalier. See you with the next video next week, where we'll talk about composition, narrative composition, descriptive and argumentative composition. Indeed, this man will be a productive man. Within just 1 month, covering all these topics. All these topics. Knowledge is power. It's time to build your life. It's time to build your life. Knowledge is power. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your video. Thank you.